Hey, what's up, wonderful viewers? I think I owe all of you an explanation as to why I have disappeared over the past week. For those of you who have been following my Twitter, you probably know that my laptop, let's just say, encountered an accident, and as a result, I was left without a machine to work on, which means I lost not only a couple of videos that I had lined up for you, but I was also not able to play any games on JNet and record new videos. Now that that's over with, and now that I'm slowly starting to reconfigure all my settings, getting Blender and basically all my video editing stuff back to what they were before, I can now resume, hopefully, churning out videos for all of you. So yes, apologies for the blackout period, and I seek your understanding if the next few videos are choppy or if there's anything wrong with them, do point them out so that I can rectify them. As I said, I'm working with a new system right now, so expect some hitches here and there, but otherwise we should be good to go. So without further ado, let's dive straight into today's video. So we're gonna jump straight in and confuse you right off the bat. I'm gonna tell you right now that my NEH deck is not horizontal, and as you can see from the Baltic label in my hand, it's not attempting to kill. This is Glacier Fast Advance. This is the latest and greatest in NEH technology. It's secret tech. Alright, so I'm gonna defend my centrals first, just in case my opponent's running Siphon. You can always expect Siphon from most Anarchs nowadays if they have a Lancia Wizard. My opponent has Rebirth, Medium, Inject, and I've had worse from the first Inject. So I'm definitely expecting a Rebirth to Wizard here, especially given that I installed the Sand on my first turn. My opponent runs HQ here, don't mind the Jinteki interface, it's a bit balked. So I'm going to rest the wraparound here. I cannot afford to let Valencia hit my Breaking News or Project BU. Alright, so there's not much tech punishment in this deck actually, apart from Data Ward and exchange of information, and those are what I'm trying to use to combat against the influx of Siphon and Arc. We'll see if that works. My opponent rebirths into Edward Kim. Again, Jinteki is balked, so you won't see the rebirth, but from now on, my opponent will trash the first operation they access each turn. Just keep that in mind. Alright, so Edward Kim is a very interesting choice against NEH. I suppose my opponent suspects that I'm on Boom NEH, which has been pretty much popularized since Worlds. And yeah, Power Shutdown Boom is a very interesting? I don't know, a very powerful deck, that's for sure. If my opponent cannot go fast enough, they might be in trouble. The second Inject reviews, Dirty Laundry, Paperclip, Inject, and Obolus. Obolus basically, well, it doesn't quite give away the exact strategy, but there's now a much higher chance that my opponent's on account Siphon. This could be a pure blackmail spam deck, but given that my opponent attempted to hard rest the wraparound, or rather gave me a chance to, I have to assume that my opponent is not on any blackmail spam deck. Alright, and a save Dirty Laundry to Archives, and they'll pass the turn over to me. In the meantime, I'm staring at the Data Ward in my hand. Placing this optimally is going to be one very key thing that I need to achieve this game. Breaking News is scored, that's a big problem for me. I really want to score that. Really didn't want to see him snipe that. So, sub boost. Yeah, Data Ward sub boost is a thing, and that is what I'm attempting to do here against non-tag me matchups. But something tells me that my opponents probably tag me anyway. They probably run account Siphon. So now I have to respect the threat of account Siphon because all they have shown is Rebirth and David from the influence. So I'm going to put the Raven on HQ. Normally you want Data Ward on HQ to protect against account Siphon. And that might be fine as well, but I think the Data Ward is a good enough the Data Raven rather is a good enough deterrence. If they take too many tags, they might be in trouble, and more importantly, I want the Data Ward on R&D, not on HQ. There's a very important reason for this. If the Raven is on R&D, it stops the deep medium digs, which is what typically loses you the game. Whereas Ward on HQ might protect you against Siphon for the rest of the game. But because I don't run psychographics in this deck, I can't really win if my opponent medium digs me. So I think the priority here is actually to get Data Ward on R&D rather than HQ. Sure, the big risk with Ward on R&D is that if you get Siphon locked, you won't have the money to rest Data Ward anyway, which is a huge problem. So I'm just going to show the Raven here because I do not want the bill stolen. And more importantly, if my opponent is on passant, which they probably are, I want to be able to rest this ice and not allow them to trash the ice using en passant. So I'm just going to show my entire hand here. This is a Raven to wrap around server. You can get through it if you want with account siphon, but you're going to let me fire the Raven trace, and that's not good for you. My opponent doesn't have fouls, so they cannot break the data Raven. This means that I can actually take advantage of this by boosting the trace to duck the account siphon, and that's usually quite important. By ducking account siphons, what you're actually doing is denying your opponent money. My opponent has spent quite a lot of setup overhead installing the obelisk, installing paperclip, and now getting Joshua B. So that's setup overhead that actually cost them a lot of credits. If I can deny them siphon credits, I'll be in a good spot, and that's what the Raven's doing right here. It's going to absorb the impact of the account siphon, make sure that my opponent does not get too much mileage out of it. Sure, I'll be bankrupt. Sure, I can't res the data ward rather on R&D, but hey, at least they don't really get a good account siphon. And I can kind of live with not having too many credits at this point. Right now, I'm just turtling up. This is where the glacier aspect of this NEH deck comes in. Most of my turns will be spent clicking for credits, and that's completely fine. As long as I can outlive the siphons and start setting up my data wards, I will have a board state that my opponent cannot deal with. So the siphon goes through. With 1 credit, my opponent decides not to siphon. It's not worth it taking the tags apparently. And goes for the access on Sansan, choosing not to trash it. And what can they do now? They do get the obelisk draw, which is a very good reason for them not to siphon. And then going for R&D, where I show the pop-up window. This pop-up window is going to do a lot of work. It's going to generate me income if my opponent decides to hammer R&D, and that's quite important, because this means that I can get to 6 credits more quickly, which means I can threaten data ward on R&D. First order of business, trash a Joshua B. Giving your opponent free clicks is never a good thing. If you can trash a Joshua B, always do. So basically, I've completely identified my opponent's deck at this point. They're running Myth Valencia with the Blackmail en passant combo, account siphon to threaten HQ, and Joshua B to just further the lead. While I don't really have any much tag punishment that punishes the multi-tags that my opponent will take very well, at least I have data ward, which is going to be really important this game. Having an R&D will give me the great security that that's a problem. So the data wall that was supposed to protect my R&D is now gone because I couldn't res it. That's a problem. And it's not like I even forced a blackmail of my opponent. They just simply ran R&D, knew that I couldn't res anything of value, and then proceeded to just destroy it. And they got the sweet sweep as well. They were Edward Kim, they hammered the sweet sweep to archives. That sweet sweep would have given me a lot of money. Well, so yeah, the tables have turned. Now I'm getting siphon locked. Again, I'm pumping the Raven trace. There's not much point in dumping the Raven tags, but yeah, this is not good. I am forcing out the siphons, but I'm not exactly making any headway, and the agendas are going to start appearing sooner or later. An R&D run is made. Again, I can't rest the outermost piece of ice. Pop-up window fires. I do get a credit, but so what? I do actually have 3 data wards in this deck, so I might be able to see one sooner or later, but I really do need to see it very quickly, because otherwise I'm going to lose my grip on this game very soon. So I'm going to draw a new card. I'm going to draw past the R&D lock. The biggest problem with giving my opponent unfettered R&D access, even without medium, is that they are Edward Kim. They can trash all the important cards that I'm looking for, such as Sweep Sweep, Exchange of Information, 2 cards that I really need to make solidify my lead in this game. Exchange allows me to punish tags by making it very hard for them to score 7 agendas to win. And Sweet Sweep gives me the money I need to actually res data wards. If I have a Sweet Sweep data ward, I'll be able to secure a server of my choice so long as they don't perform the blackmail en passant combo on me. Because Sweet Sweep will give me enough money to res the ward at one go. Now I immediately scored a breaking news here because I need to turn on Exchange. The moment I see Exchange, it's go time. I need to swap an agenda with my opponent. Otherwise, they'll just dig me for me to lose. You'll also notice that I use my Jackson. earlier on a sweep because I really wanted it, and boom, it appeared right in my hand. Just threw it. That sweep is going to be huge. My opponent has a pretty decent hand size now. That sweep is going to be worth a lot. And as I said, that sweeps ward combo is in my hand. I'm prepared to use it. The question is the time now? Is the server HQ? Do I do it? Yes, I do. I'm going to remove the data raven here and put the ward in its place. So this will secure HQ, and hopefully with the combination of Enigma and Quandary, I should be able to keep my opponent out of R&D, given that they haven't found a files yet. So this will put me in a very safe spot. If I close down Siphon from my opponent, there's nothing much they can do. All they can do is poke around with blackmails and hope to get single accesses, which my opponent does here, poking around with blackmail for single access on HQ. I'm really hoping they don't hit the Bill here. Bill is something I want to score on the Sansan, not something I want my opponent to steal. They hit the Baltic instead, that's fine. Edward Kim, doesn't matter, I don't usually have the money to score. Not again. Not again. Well, now I'm getting hammered. I'm getting hammered so hard. Can't protect that Bill anymore. It's gone. All I can do right now is to immediately play the restructure from my hand while I still can before my opponent finds any more recursion. But damn, that data ward would be so good right now. Oh no. Instead, I'm getting HQ locked. Thankfully, there are no agendas here, but I do lose the CVS, which I really meant to put on R&D. That would help stem the deep medium digs. Thankfully, that's not happening yet. My opponent is not having much luck with finding mediums, so I'm safe on that front for now. And they know that my hand's empty, save for a single Quandary. So, yeah, I've been keeping the Quandary in my hand for a long time because I do intend to use the Quandary on the Sansan server eventually when I start scoring agendas. But clearly, that's not going to happen anytime soon. So at this point, I'm just going to try drawing for agendas that I want to score on the Sansan. My opponent can't be running into HQ all the time, even though it's free to run. Remember that Edward Kim does have that bad part from Valencia. Then I continue fortifying HQ here so that it's not that easy for my opponent to simply drop Siphon on me. My opponent sets up with Liberated accounts, that's fine. They ignore the Jackson on the table, so I'm just going to Jackson draw right here. I do find an EOI and I'm very tempted to use it right now, but I'm waiting for my opponent to fetch a food for me before exchanging for full effect. Double draw, I find, of all things, an Astro script. So that Astro is going to be huge. If my opponent fails to siphon me next turn, I will be able to score this Astro off the Sansan, and that's going to be huge. Getting an Astro token in this matchup is huge because it allows me to churn out more agendas, and with the double exchange in my hand, I can more or less guarantee a victory, as long as I see an agenda soon. My only real concern right now is that my opponent will siphon lock me, thereby denying me the chance to score the Astro off the Sansan, which is why I'm heavily icing up HQ right now. Alright, the files comes out and my opponent runs R&D. I'm going to let them through. Why? Because I need the 8 credits to score the Astro off the Sansan. I can gain credits with Sweet Sweep, but if I play Sweet Sweep, I gain a lot of money, but I won't be able to score Astro in the same turn. So my opponent helps me score a food. This is the ideal case scenario. However, they are now on 5 points. They're on match point. I need to defend against the score. So this is where I rest Enigma. Previously, I was okay with a single access. Now, I'm not that happy. If they top deck a Project Build, for example, I'll lose. Thankfully, there are not that many agendas left in deck. Only 2 foods and 2 builds. So I'm not really worried about my opponent top decking the agenda at this point. I just want to tax them of cards to force them to lose some important utility cards from their hand to Faust. And really now? 5 agendas and 28 cards on R&D, and he hit 2 of them. Well, not much I can say about that. But what I do want to say though is that NBN Glacier is not something that can be played very well, simply because of this. You don't really have any sort of defense against En Passant at all. The other factions have some way to counter it, and Wayland obviously has a lot of answers between bad part removal, Christium Grid, and force res through cards like Oversight AI. So a lot of basically all the other factions have one way or another to deal with En Passant. NBN, however, is completely reliant on you savagely outplaying your opponent, which doesn't happen a lot of the time. My opponent played very well. He knew where the data wards were and used the en passants very wisely to kill the data wards twice, one on HQ, one on R&D, and those were huge. If I ever got to res any of them, he would have to spend a knife and 7 credits to get past it with paperclip. It's still a huge tax. So yeah, against an opponent who a Valencia player who kind of knows what they're doing, NBN Glacier is not going to stand a chance, which is why NBN has to go other routes, like playing CTM or Sync with other win conditions like Flatline, or purely horizontal with exchange of information. A hybrid Glacier build just isn't going to work if they can shut down your Glacier and your fast advance as well with a Count Siphon. So this deck, unfortunately, even though it has Data Ward, which seems pretty good against Siphon spam, doesn't actually counter en passant Siphon Valencia all that well. Well, now you know. Thanks for watching, happy net running.